You know that poor sleep leaves you dragging through the day, feeling drained and foggy brained, and more than a little bit grouchy. But did you know that poor sleep can be deadly? Stay tuned to learn about 7 serious diseases linked to poor sleep. I'm Dr. Vickie Petz Kasper. I practiced obstetrics and gynecology for 20 years until I landed on the other side of the sheets as a very sick patient. When my own body betrayed me, I took a handful of pills to manage my disease and another handful to counteract the side effects. My health was out of control. Through surgery, medications, and lots of prayers, I regained my strength only to face another diagnosis. My doctor challenged me to make radical changes through lifestyle medicine. Now I feel great and I want to help you make changes that make a difference. Healthy Looks Great on You podcast takes you to many medical schools so you can learn the power of lifestyle medicine. If you're ready to take control of your health, you're in the right place. Whether you're focused on prevention or you're trying to manage a condition, I'll give you practical steps to start your own journey toward better health, because healthy looks great on you. This is episode 158, The Risky Business of Poor Sleep, 7 Serious Diseases. You know you need to get a good night's sleep. You want to rest and wake up feeling refreshed and restored, but it's not that simple for everyone. Even though sleep is essential for life, chronic insomnia affects 30% of adults, and half of all people experience some degree of insomnia during their lives. So if you struggle to sleep, you certainly aren't alone. But before you start planning a zombie party for all of your friends who are raring to go long after bedtime, let's take a look at the impact on your health. And spoiler alert, it ain't good for you. Not only does poor sleep affect the quality of life and emotional well-being, it's associated with an increased risk of 7 serious diseases. I mean, it's bad enough to slog through the day sleepy, irritable, and feeling blah, but people with significant insomnia tend to have a shorter lifespan. I mean, if they know Jesus, they can sleep in heavenly peace, but in the meantime, it's best to maximize restorative sleep because of the impact on health. And before you reach for the medicine bottle or go shopping down the supplement and sleep aid aisle, you're going to want to stay tuned to this podcast because next week we're going to break down all the pills and potions. But this week, we're going to talk about what the following conditions all have in common: heart disease, type 2 diabetes, depression, obesity, Alzheimer's dementia, immune dysfunction, and certain cancers. And you don't even need to go to many medical school to guess that poor sleep increases the risk of developing all 7 of these serious diseases. Good sleep is crucial for good health. I know, you get it. You know sleep is super important. You want to sleep. You've tried to sleep, but you can't. I hope you know I feel your pain. I've been there, and I understand the frustration of going to bed and knowing you're not going to sleep. That's why I've created some resources for you. I've been exactly where you are. That overwhelming frustration of desperately wanting to sleep, but feeling powerless to make it happen. Want some good news? It doesn't have to be this way. I've transformed my own sleep journey, and I'm here to help you do the same. Here's your path to better sleep. Start today by downloading my free guide, Turn Off Your Mind and Sleep, at healthylooksgreatonyou.com. And while this valuable resource is not a magic cure, it's a first step toward peaceful nights. But that's just the beginning. On March 3rd and March 5th, I'm unveiling something game-changing. 6 hidden reasons you're tossing and turning. And this is a series of live webinars where I'll reveal the unexpected factors sabotaging your sleep. Think you've tried everything? Think again. And for those ready to completely transform their sleep, mark your calendars, because mid-March brings the launch of my comprehensive online course, Unlock the Secret to Sleep, your personal sleep solution. And this isn't just another sleep program. It's your complete roadmap to consistently restful nights and energized days. Don't spend another night staring at the ceiling. Take the first step now. And if you take advantage of any of the free resources on my website, you'll automatically be subscribed to get every episode of this podcast, plus all those bonuses, right in your inbox. Now, last month, I did a series of podcast episodes on dementia, and now I'm transitioning to sleep. But before we exit this road, let's take a look at the intersection between brain health and sleep. I've already given you the list of 7 diseases associated with poor sleep, and so this is not in order, but logically I thought we would discuss Alzheimer's dementia first. And if you missed the series, there are links in the show notes to each episode. But if you just want the bottom line, lifestyle modifications are your best weapon to prevent this disease, which is exploding in our aging population. Now, today in mini medical school, we're going to learn about beta amyloid, which is sometimes referred to as amyloid beta. That's kind of weird. I guess this peptide is a little confused about which name comes first. You can call me beta amyloid or you can call me amyloid beta, but you don't have to call me Ray. Okay, that was a poor attempt at humor, but I stand by the fact that laughter is still the best medicine. But what's in a name? Well, Dr. Alzheimer himself identified senile plaques, which are those buildups of beta amyloid in the brain, as well as neurofibrillary tangles, which come from tau proteins. And he discovered all of this in the early 1900s. In people with Alzheimer's, amyloid proteins stick together and get folded over, and they form plaques, and that is toxic to brain cells. In fact, beta amyloid plaques are the hallmark finding in the brains of people with Alzheimer's. But here's the deal. I've got amyloids and you've got amyloids in your brain too. But if you're normal, then your glymphatic system washes it away and breaks it down. Want to guess when this happens? Yep, while you were sleeping. Or in the case of insomnia, not. And clearly, there's an increased risk of Alzheimer's dementia in people with midlife insomnia. As it turns out, a lot of things in midlife have long-term effects on our health. So maybe if you think you got away with not paying attention to your health when you were young, now is the time to reset and change directions. Need a little more motivation? Well, let's move on to the increased risk of cardiovascular disease. And that's a catch-all term that refers to heart disease, heart attack, and high blood pressure. Cardio means heart, and vascular refers to blood vessels. And guess what? You've got blood vessels in your heart and throughout your body. So what's sleep got to do with it? Well, I'm glad you asked. Insomnia is considered an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease and is associated with a higher chance of dying from heart disease or anything else for that matter. We call that mortality. And listen, I know we are all going to die of something, but the goal of this podcast is to give you information, motivation, and inspiration to take care of this one body God gave us to last a lifetime on this earth. So yeah, I'm going to die of something, and so are you. But I'd really like to stick around for a while with the people I love. Wouldn't you? And I want to be healthy enough to play and enjoy life. And cardiovascular disease can rob you of the ability to do anything that requires stamina. So don't give me that "we're all going to die of something" line. Eventually, your car is going to have enough miles that the engine fails. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't get your oil changed on a regular basis. Maintenance for your health is so much more important than maintenance for your vehicle. I mean, you can't replace your body. So pay attention to your heart health and sleep. They're all related. Now let's explore why poor sleep affects heart health. You know, when you sleep, not only is your glymphatic system clearing out toxins from your brain, but your sympathetic nervous system is just kind of chill, and your blood pressure drops. But when instead your blood vessels don't relax, that causes an elevation in blood pressure. And not only does that increase the risk of hypertension and heart disease, but also stroke. Now, this is interesting. If you can't sleep because you wake up during the night or you wake up super early in the morning, then your blood pressure probably doesn't do the normal dip. But if you have trouble falling asleep at the beginning of the night, it doesn't seem to have as much effect on your blood pressure. You see, sleep is very specific and complex, and the type of sleep trouble you have affects your risk. If you're interested in learning more about blood pressure, then when you go to my website, healthylooksgreatonyou.com, and search for 4 reasons to control your blood pressure, there'll be an episode that pops up. And of course, I'll put a link in the show notes. Okay, we've covered the brain and the heart and blood vessels. Now, sweetie, it's time to talk about those sugar plums dancing in your head. Because insomnia is associated with an increased risk of type 2 diabetes, as well as progression from prediabetes to type 2 diabetes. Want some good news? Improving your sleep can improve your glycemic control. That means it's easier to normalize your blood sugars with a good full 8 hours of shut-eye. And specifically, short sleep duration is associated with an increased risk of diabetes. Both inflammation and insulin resistance are increased with poor sleep. And if you're interested in more of the science made simple, listen to the episode, Why is Sleeping So Hard? But here's the deal. Sugar causes inflammation. And insulin is the key that opens the door to move the sugar out of the blood vessels and into your cells so it can be used as fuel. But with type 2 diabetes, this mechanism is impaired. This all goes back to a coordinated effort by the body to balance various hormones like growth hormone, insulin, and cortisol. And yes, it's all affected by sleep. Next in the list of 7 deadly diseases associated with poor sleep is cancer. In fact, researchers have proposed a 24% increased risk of cancer in people with insomnia. And it's certain cancers in particular, like lung cancer, colorectal cancer, breast cancer, and ovarian cancer. Turns out that disrupting your internal clock does more than keep you wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. It's theorized that cancer cells may take advantage of lower levels of the sleep hormone melatonin. You see, melatonin is released in the brain and sends out signals to synchronize many organs and bodily functions. And it plays a huge role in hormone balance, things like estrogen, but also cortisol. And this affects cellular growth and repair at the DNA level. That's where genes are switched on and off by the immune system. At the most basic level, cancer is an abnormal growth of cells, so it's plausible that skimping on the cleanup and reboot system for your body's defenses gives the enemy an advantage. Both inflammation and insulin resistance contribute to DNA damage, and that can increase the risk for cancer. I feel like I could just repeat the word inflammation with each of these 7 diseases. Inflammation in the blood vessels affects every organ supplied by blood, and well, that pretty much covers it all. But also, inflammation's life partner is the immune system. You know, they're still married, but they fight a lot trying to find the perfect balance between keeping out foreign invaders that have come to kill and destroy, like infection and cancer, and not going nuclear and exploding your body's own cells. So that leads to number 5 on the list of deadly diseases associated with poor sleep, and that is immune dysfunction. And if you think you have a dysfunctional family, let me tell you about the immune system. Try putting the bone marrow, the thymus gland, the spleen, mucous membrane, skin, tonsils, and lymph nodes in a room together and watch them go into attack mode. They'll crank out some white blood cells, antibodies, cytokine, and complement to mount a defense against infection. And that's a good thing. When bacteria, viruses, parasites, and fungus breaches our first line of protection, we need a strong immune system to fight them off. Turns out that fighting off infection is a process that's also related to tumor suppression, like we discussed with cancer. But here's the deal: the immune family is a rowdy bunch, and sometimes they miss the target and attack their own. I mean, you've seen a room full of toddlers, right? They want everything. That's mine. It's mine. That's their favorite phrase. So when they get overzealous, it causes autoimmune disease. Okay, now this is getting personal. I have an autoimmune disease called myasthenia gravis. In this condition, the body makes antibodies against itself. And we all know that a house divided against itself cannot stand. And that's what happened to me. Literally, my muscles were so weak I couldn't stand for very long, walk very far, or use my arms for any length of time. Because every time my nerves tried to send a signal to my muscles, my misguided immune system interrupted the neurotransmitter as if it were there to hurt me. Now, what causes myasthenia gravis? Well, it's not really known, but guess what? Poor sleep is associated with immune dysfunction. Now, I was a self-described health nut for many years. I ate a lot of whole, unprocessed foods, exercised regularly, managed my stress pretty well, and had a healthy group of connections. Oh, and my mama always said, don't drink, don't smoke, don't chew, and don't go with those who do. So I've never been one to be exposed to unhealthy levels of harmful substances. Now, I just listed 5 of the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. Let me see. What did I leave out? Oh, yeah. Sleep. Until MG knocked me flat on my back, I ignored the importance of rest and sleep on my health. And it caught up with me. And that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about restorative sleep. Let those who've lived like the walking dead serve as a warning. And if dementia, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and immune health aren't enough to convince you that you need to prioritize sleep, then how about obesity? And listen, do you see a theme developing? Aberrations in the circadian rhythm disrupt normal melatonin production, which in turn has a powerful influence in hormone regulation and balance. And all of that affects your levels of hunger and satisfaction, and ultimately, the number on the scales. If you've ever wanted to reset your metabolism, then focus on resetting your sleep because they are closely related. And obesity increases the risk of heart disease, cancer, high blood pressure, and of course, type 2 diabetes. This is starting to feel like a snowball, gaining more and more waist circumference as it rolls down the hill. Not only does lack of sleep slow down your metabolism, it increases the level of the hunger hormone, ghrelin, and it decreases the satiety hormone, leptin, that tells your brain you're full. I've already mentioned the connection between insulin and sleep, and insulin resistance is also a factor in excess weight gain. Both insomnia and obesity are epidemic. And look, you're not going to lose weight by sleeping better at night, but you might gain weight by not sleeping at night, and it might be easier for you to stay active and eat healthy if you get a good night's rest. Gosh, this whole thing is kind of depressing. You knew I was going there, didn't you? The 7th serious disease associated with poor sleep is depression. And get this, people with insomnia have a 10-fold increased risk of depression. In one of my previous episodes, I called sleep the mood mechanic. There's a link in the show notes. But on the other side of the pillow, if you have depression, you have 75% more trouble falling asleep. Now, how do they measure that? Well, in the past, they relied on surveys where research subjects just recalled their sleep. But now we're getting more and more data from wearables like watches and rings and smart beds like the Sleep Number bed. But the fact remains that sometimes it's hard to tell if depression causes sleep disruption or the other way around. Listen, don't stay awake at night worrying about it. If you have depression, talk to your doctor or healthcare provider about the right treatment for you and your insomnia. Because I'm guessing if you have one, you have both. However, That leads me to reason number 2 that I'm passionate about sleep. The average doctor only gets 2.5 hours of training on sleep in medical school. So there's that. And the number one recommendation to treat insomnia is not medication. So you're going to want to stay tuned and learn more so you can lower your risk of dementia, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, cancer, immune dysfunction, and depression. Sleeping may not come easy for you, but it's worth the effort to give your body a chance to do the work on the night shift and restore your mind and your health, because healthy looks great on you. The information contained in this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not considered to be a substitute for medical advice. You should continue to follow up with your physician or healthcare provider and take medication as prescribed. Though the information in this podcast is evidence-based, new research may develop and recommendations may change.